What if I am in a toxic relationship? Welcome back to the Secure Husband Podcast. Bruce Abbott, certified professional coach and founder of SecureHusband.com, the podcast where I help good men stop reacting from pain and start leading with calm strength, emotional clarity, and truth. Your marriage is struggling. You feel unhappy. You feel like she's always angry. You feel you're abandoned. And you're asking this question over and over. Is this a toxic relationship? Maybe it started as just normal marriage frustration, but now everything's my fault. I spend 24/7 walking on eggshells. If I speak up, she blows up or she shuts down. I'm in the room and bam, she comes in and she's screaming about some minor thing. I feel like I have no joy anymore. I feel like I have no voice. I have no say. I have no sense of who I am anymore. If you're asking those questions and you're wondering to yourself, is this what marriage is supposed to feel like? You may be in a toxic relationship. How do you identify the difference between a wounded relationship, a good relationship just between two wounded people, and a toxic one? I had a very emotional coaching session with someone the other day. He was in tears. He was so discouraged, beaten down. He looked like a little boy, and he was telling me events that had happened over the last maybe 24 or 48 hours where he's doing all the things that he should be able to do. Like he was helping his young daughter pick out clothes to get dressed. And his wife comes in, she came into the room, she's screaming at him because why did you pick that outfit? That doesn't go with this. She's yelling at him. He was in the kitchen there and his wife comes in and he had scrubbed a pan and he didn't get the pan completely cleaned and she just exploded on him. And it included statements like, you can't do anything right. And I was stunned as he was telling me these details. And he's like, I don't know, but I feel like this is a toxic relationship. And I had to say, yeah, I think you're right. See, he wasn't yelling. He wasn't blaming. He wasn't trying to get sympathy. He was just beaten down. He was just worn down, tired, years of confusion, years of trying to second guess, trying to just survive in this environment that was truly belittling. He knew it wasn't normal, but subconsciously he would tell himself that this is normal, or else he wouldn't have put up with it. I asked him, I said, so if you ever stand up for yourself, what happens? If you just say stop, what happens? And he was like, oh gosh, if I do anything even remotely like that, she explodes or she completely shuts down, disappears. I don't see her. She goes to her sister's house and I don't see her for days. And they've got kids. He's telling me that I just keep everything to myself just to survive the day. I don't feel safe in my own home. And I don't mean physically, but emotionally. And then he tells me, if I can just get better, if I can become a better husband, maybe it's just me. That was heartbreaking. That is a huge red flag. If you feel like you're constantly questioning your own reality, something's not right. And you got some work to do. And it starts with a very hard truth. You are probably in a toxic relationship. And you cannot heal this, but you can heal yourself. So step one is always awareness. Notice the cycle that you're caught in. Notice the pattern without blaming yourself. This is not about shame, and this is not about blame. See, when you're in a toxic dynamic, you're not seeing things clearly, even though you really are. Because maybe we see that it's not always bad. Little moments, little table scraps of tenderness or niceness, maybe little moments of connection. Maybe it's not all bad. Maybe when it feels like that, it's like, okay, well, maybe this will get better. And then just as fast, bam, it turns again. The screaming, the withholding, the dysfunction. My client was saying, oh, she's fine when she gets what she wants, but if I push back even gently, it flips a switch, and now I'm the enemy. See, she used shame as a weapon. She would bring up past mistakes with him constantly. She refused counseling because you're the one with the problem, and she would threaten divorce anytime that he asked for something. And everything was turned into an example of his failure. So we started talking about this more. I'm like, how long have you been walking on eggshells like this? He's like, years. I don't remember the last time I felt safe fully being me. This is now the beginning of him telling the truth. But you have to bring this to the surface. You have to notice this, because this is where the healing process has to start. You can't heal what you don't notice. And then you can make a choice. You can choose to stop gaslighting yourself. You choose to believe that your feelings matter, even if she doesn't validate them. This is one of the most damaging parts of being in a toxic dynamic is you start gaslighting yourself. So if you've ever heard sayings like, you're too sensitive. Gosh, I was just joking. Can't you take a joke? That's not what I said. You always twist things around. And eventually you start believing that's true. You start believing her more than you believe yourself. And so when these hurtful things would come up, it would just hit you right in the chest and you would become emotionally flooded. Self-soothing your nervous system is going to be so important. That's one of the major first things that I work with my coaching clients is how to keep from getting flooded in these moments. Because if you feel unsafe or manipulated, unheard in your marriage, no, you're not crazy. You're just disconnected from your own truth. And then you have to make a choice. You choose this daily. You choose this maybe every minute, but you choose to believe yourself again. You choose to believe that this pain is real, that this experience that you are going through matters. It's not in your head. Just because she didn't validate your emotions doesn't mean that your emotions are invalid. You start understanding that this is a situation that you did not cause and you will not fix. And when you get to that point, your mindset shifts from asking yourself, is this bad enough to leave? To when you start to become more secure, you start asking yourself, is this healthy enough to stay? Because when you go through the healing process of healing yourself, when you meet that part of you that believes that you have to earn love by tolerating the intolerable, every man who ends up in a toxic relationship has a younger version of himself still trying to be good enough to get love. For my client, it traced back to his father, who was emotionally checked out. His mom was unpredictable and critical, so he grew up feeling like love was something you worked for. If someone was mad, it was your fault. You had to be perfect to be safe. So now, when your wife belittles you, shuts you out, manipulates you, that wounded boy comes rushing forward. Because he didn't leave. He didn't speak up. He didn't draw a line. He tried harder. He tried to fix. He got quieter. He waited for her to change, hoped she would change. Deep down, that little boy inside of you believed that if I just love her better, be a better husband, be a better man, she'll stop this behavior. She'll stop with the hurtful comments. If I just take that next step up, that's not love. That's trauma. So we have to go back. I give my guys homework, visualization exercises. Visualize that little boy inside of you. Look at the fear in his eyes. Meet him with love and compassion. Hug him. Wrap your arms around yourself if you need to. Talk to that little boy inside with love and understanding and compassion and tell him you don't have to earn love by suffering anymore. I've got you now. I will not abandon you again. That's where healing begins. And you connect to a higher power. I talk about this in every podcast. Connecting to something bigger than yourself, a source of unconditional love, a source of truth that's louder than the false beliefs that are in your head, that says you are absolutely worthy of being treated well. You're absolutely worthy of love, absolutely worthy of compassion. You don't have to do anything to earn that. There's nothing you can do to hustle more and be perfect to earn that love. And there's nothing that you can do that would cause somebody to pull it away from you. Kind of like Lucy with the football with Charlie Brown, where he just pulls it away. No, your spiritual sense of worth, your spiritual guidance, whether that's God, the universe, whatever your belief system is, that source of unconditional love teaches you that you don't have to earn it. All you have to do is reach out, open your heart for it. Because when you talk to that little boy inside, when you connect to that divine guidance through prayer, through meditation, whatever you do, it all comes together. And this is where healing begins. And from there, you get clarity. You go to your divine guidance and say, what is the next loving action that's aligned with truth, not from false core beliefs, that's aligned with self-compassion, that's aligned with self-love, and self-respect, not self-abandonment. And then you understand the dynamic better, and you can stop taking responsibility for what isn't yours. So let's get clear. Not all dysfunctional relationships are toxic. You can have two good people who just are in a dysfunctional pattern. I always say good men married to good women. Sometimes it is just two wounded people reacting from pain and they can't seem to get into sync. But there's a difference between a wounded spouse and a toxic pattern. Wounded people hurt each other, but they're open to growth. They're just trying to protect themselves. They're in self-protection mode. They don't understand how to let the other person in because they haven't really let themselves in. Toxic dynamics use pain as control. Wounded couples, they fight, but they come back to repair. Toxic partners, they punish, they manipulate, they withdraw, and they make you crazy for having needs. There's a difference between a wounded relationship and a toxic relationship. And you can tell this if your pain is consistently met with blame or dismissal or punishment. That's not wounded, that's toxic. And you start tracking these patterns. You start with noticing. This is where journaling can come in really handy. Write these things down. Write down what you said, how she responded, what she said, how you felt afterward, what happened. Put these things down. As you get this data, as you write all of this stuff in, you start looking back. The pattern becomes extremely clear. And at this point, you no longer lie to yourself. This is not a mutual struggle. It's a pattern of domination, of blame. You stop minimizing it. You start seeing it clearly. That clarity becomes power. And if you've connected with your divine guidance, you find out what that next loving action is. You take radical ownership of your healing, even if she never joins the journey, because most often in a toxic relationship, she is not going to join you on this journey. And that was the hardest part for my client. He was so sad realizing that, hey, you know what? No one's going to come to help him. No one is going to be there for him. Not his wife, not the idea that maybe things will get better someday. So he had to make a choice. If I'm going to become the man I respect, even if she never sees it or agrees with it. So what do? You start setting boundaries. You stop apologizing for your needs. You stop trying to fix the relationship with all of these grand plans. You start showing up for yourself like a loving partner would, a loving parent. You parent that inner child. You show up for yourself out of love and compassion, self-respect. See, when you do this, you stop making her behavior the measure of your worth. You start being that man that your inner boy always needed. That's leadership. And then what happens is that's when you start to put those boundaries up. When she starts coming at you with that tone of voice, you raise your hand and you say, stop. You're not going to talk to me like that. And it's not going to take one time. You're going to have to do this over and over. And it will probably get really bad before the situation ever gets better. Now, when I say the situation, does that mean that your marriage ends? Maybe not. Usually in a toxic relationship, when you start standing up for yourself, that's the first steps towards the end. But what happens is now that love that you wanted to give to your wife that was never reciprocated, now you start to give to yourself and you become filled with peace and joy again. It may be on your own, but the idea is you become a man who stops wondering if his relationship is toxic, start understanding if it is or it's not, and then trusting what he feels so that you're not in this confusion state anymore. You're not asking, what if I'm the problem? Now you start asking yourself, what do I need to do? Action, loving, aligned action to feel whole, to feel at peace again. From that place, you can make those hard decisions. Whether you stay or go is really not the point. The point here is that you stop abandoning yourself. The outcome will be what the outcome is. But when you stop chasing those crumbs of affection, you stop begging to be seen, you stop tolerating emotional abuse in the name of keeping the peace and love in the marriage, you stop doing this. That's when you become a secure husband. It has nothing to do about your wife changing. It has everything to do about you. I mean, if you're asking yourself, am I in a toxic relationship? You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not alone. But you may be wounded. You don't need it to get worse before you give yourself permission to take care of yourself. Truth, authenticity, self-love. Stop walking on eggshells. If you've lost that voice in your marriage, if your needs are not met and all you get is blame and silence and manipulation, that's not healthy. You deserve better. You can become the man who protects himself without becoming cold or cruel yourself. You lead yourself to safety, to clarity, to truth. That's becoming secure. I hope this podcast was helpful for you. Hey, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Share this with someone who you think may need to hear this. And if you need to get unstuck, visit securehusband.com for a free 30-minute consultation, just a conversation to see if I can help you, hold you accountable for healing. I'll see you again on the next Secure Husband podcast. Thanks for listening.